we have gone with the best minions in Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And who, as the winner, who have you chosen this week?
Yeah, so I might be cheating a little bit, but I went Minion slash Goon because he isn't a main bad guy. He was a sidekick. He is a minion of Vegeta, and that is Nappa. So Nappa is my pick to be the best minion in Dragon Ball. So, reasons why. Of course, he is the first big brute of Dragon Ball Z. He's the first one introduced. Raditz, I wouldn't class as a big brute. He is a bad guy, but he's not the typical big, strong sidekick. You know, he's his own character. Whereas Nappa, he is the first big brute. He goes on to be like the original for all future brutes to come. And the first time you see him, with Vegeta, they're going around on planet Alia and they blow up the planet. You know, I mean, that was Vegeta, but Nappa was their sidekick, you know, as he was doing all the bad work as well. The bad work, I guess, you know, he was killing people on the planet. But the first time you see them on Earth, the first thing he does is blow up a city. And you're like, oh, okay, he can just blow up a city by just raising two fingers.
Yeah, I actually, that's one of the things that always stuck with me, where he just like smiles and just blows it up. It's one of the scenes that always sticks with me, so it is quite a cool little scene.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to Earth. Bang! There goes a city. And then, you know, when he is introduced to the warriors, you know, he takes them on alone. You know, he goes out and he goes after them. And the first thing he does, one punch, bam! Tien's arm, broken. And then, you know, he's fighting a bit.
Broken?
Yeah, broken, ripped off, whatever you want to say. It's definitely more than broken. You can class ripped off as broken. It definitely doesn't work anymore.
It's a very clean cut.
It is just one punch, gone. It's like, oh, he's strong. Okay. And then, you know,
I mean, to the point where you think he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Especially because, you know, Vegeta's next to him, and if it wasn't typical anime style where it's like the small, quiet one is actually the strong one, it's like you would think, yeah, Nappa, of course, is the strong one, the stronger one of the two, at least anyway. But Chaozu steps up, grabs onto his back, self-destructs, and it's like nothing. It doesn't even hardly damage his armor. His armor's still mostly fine. Nappa's completely fine for the most part, and it's like, okay, Chaozu's dead. And then Tien goes all out with the Tri-Beam, trying to take down Nappa as well, and because of that, you know, he uses too much energy, and Tien's dead now, so two people eliminated just by taking on Nappa, you know? I mean, Nappa he isn't the one who hits the final blow, but it's because of him that they both die, so it's like, oh, okay, he's taken out two of the Z fighters, just like that. You know, and then, you know, Vegeta's like, well, Goku's not here yet, let's just wait a little while. And then Nappa decides, okay, well, I'm gonna have some fun. And he destroys the news crews that were hovering around in the helicopters, and then he takes out the military as well, just by himself, just for a bit of fun. And he's completely fine. He's a bit tired by the time he gets back because he's been flying around, but apart from that, he's taken out the military and the news crews just because, you know, he's pure evil. And that was his character. He was pure evil. You know, and then he does get back. He almost kills Piccolo, and then, you know, he bullies Gohan for a bit. There's that infamous kick to the side of the head, which launches him into a pile of rocks. And then, you know, Nappa does end up killing Piccolo in one of the most iconic scenes in Dragon Ball, where Piccolo dives in front of the mouth blast, protecting Gohan, and Piccolo's dead. And it's like, wow, Nappa's taken out three people now, three main characters by himself. And then, yes, Goku does arrive, and he gets completely overpowered with ease. You know, he breaks his back with the Kaioken ability, and he throws him onto the floor next to Vegeta. And then he's asking Vegeta for help, and Vegeta's just like, nah, bam, dead. One blast kills him, and it's like, oh, okay, Nappa's dead by one blast from this little puny guy. Vegeta's the main bad guy, and that's kind of how Vegeta's introduced properly, I guess, the first time you see him attack. And it's like, wow. But yeah, Nappa, as a sidekick, he is the best. No one else does as much damage as him as far as sidekick slash minion. He destroys 3 main characters. So I think that's going to be a tough one. Even though I might be cheating by picking Nappa, you can argue that he's his own character. But yeah, go ahead. Who's your pick?
Well, I should point out at the start that we did agree for this that we couldn't pick teams such as the Ginyu Force or the Pride Troopers because they're enough villains in themselves. So we're going with more traditional choices. I think I will struggle to beat Nappa, I'll be honest, but I went more traditional. I have stuck with the Saiyan Saga, and I've gone with the Little Greens, which is the Cybermen.
Oh.
Now, you would think they're a bit basic, but if you think about it, they've arguably done the most memorable scene in all of Dragon Ball with poor little Yamcha.
Yeah, poor Yamcha.
But I think it's really interesting for me because Z is where I started, and it'll be where a lot of people started, and because I would say as popular as original Dragon Ball was, Z is where it came more to the West.
Yeah.
And they were this, and you saw Raditz, and it was like, okay, so they've took down their first bad guy, fair enough. And then Vegeta introduces the Cybermen because we're bored.
Yeah.
And these little guys come out, and you think, oh, they're just minions. And then Vegeta turns around and drops, they're all about as strong as Raditz. And it's just like, whoa, okay, things just got interesting. And it's just seeing those little guys and knowing that they've just had to defeat this big bad, and it took Goku's life as well as Piccolo to do it. And now it just shows that they're nothing, that Raditz was nothing. And you've got these, it was at a time where power levels meant something. And so knowing that they were that strong, actually thought, oh, okay, this could be a problem for the fighters. Now, obviously, they've had the time to get ready, to prepare. So they did hold their own, and they did fight, and Yamcha did, he did beat his opponent. However, of course, he got blew up.
He got cocky.
Yeah, basically. And Krillin took out 3 of them, and Piccolo took out his. I believe Tien took out 1 as well. Yeah, because Vegeta blows him up.
Yeah.
But to me, they hold a special place because, like I said, this is when you saw more, like Dragon Ball really entered the fray a lot more. They're very memorable to me as one of the first set of minions, where you've got like Frieza's minions later on. Yeah, they're minions, and you've got Apple and Raspberry and everyone like that, and they don't hold the same weight as me. Yeah. To me, this Cybermen will always be those first minions where it was like, oh, okay. And also what they had behind them is that they basically negated the original big bad by basically saying that he was nothing to us. You struggled that much with him, and he's nothing. And he kind of reinforces how powerful Nappa and Vegeta are because of how nothing Raditz is to them. And I like that it also involved the Z Warriors. It made them useful because for the rest of the show, all that it is the people that are winning are Gohan, Goku, typically Goku. They're the ones that win all the time. The Z Warriors are redundant for 95% of Z, to be quite frank. I think we can all agree that they have their small moments, like Tien holding off Semi-Perfect Cell, but for the most part, they don't really do anything other than get in the way and get killed, just like when they got killed against Nappa. When you think about it, Chaozu blows himself up. It literally does nothing.
Yeah.
Tien nearly damages his Nappa. He nearly actually gets him, but Nappa responds just in the last second. But you see that this like Nappa looks scared just before he blocks it, and that's pretty much the closest thing. So if he took out Nappa, that would have been very, very interesting. Would have changed things quite a lot. But yeah, it shows that was the time when the Z Warriors meant something. And I think the next time they do something is when they fight the Ginyus, really. And then after that, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like Yamcha comes back and immediately gets a hole in his chest from Dr. Gero. So he's like, which I will never understand how he survived that, by the way. Yeah, so I think that's very important as well, that it was a test for the Z Warriors as well. Before things just took off and power levels became redundant, they kind of have a special little place.
You made me think of something there, because obviously, like you said, Goku and Piccolo struggled against Raditz, and obviously Goku died. Because they find out then, as soon as that fight finishes, that Vegeta and Nappa are on their way to Earth, and it'll take them 1 year to get there. And it makes me think the Z Warriors did defeat the Cyberman. Obviously Yamcha died, but that was just because he got cocky, not because Cyberman was more powerful than him or anything. He just self-destructed. It makes me think.
He got caught off guard.
Yeah, 1 year of training makes what Yamcha, Tien, Krillin more powerful than what Goku and Piccolo were against Raditz. Because they had a much easier time against the Cybermen than Goku and Piccolo did against just Raditz. So how did that happen? Just 1 year of training with Goku not being around, and all of a sudden they're basically stronger than he was. It's like, hold on, is Goku just holding everyone back? When he's around, people can't get stronger, but when he's dead,
it's like
lazy. Yeah. When he's gone, it's like, right, where's the steroids? Let's go wild.
Let Goku fix it, it'll be fine. He usually does. I think it's one of the reasons that they did the Z Warriors dirty. It's they clearly scaled. They managed to keep up. When they train, they're powerful, and in the Android saga, they don't do anything. That's when they become like in the Cell saga. Android Cell, obviously they're not in the freezer, but you don't see them do anything. I mean, really, you could have seen Krillin doing a lot more, I would say, in the Freezer saga. They should have utilized him more, but all he really does is run about with Gohan hiding for the most part of it. I would have liked to see him do... He obviously does some things, but I would have liked to see him do more.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Because they start falling off after that, really.
Yeah, especially since
Krillin's the only one that kind of does stuff.
Yeah, Krillin is the strongest human, and it's like he still doesn't do much.
Yeah. So I think that's why, because back then it allowed the Z Warriors to flex. Basically, it made them matter.
And I guess the Cybermen were the originals for what the Cell Juniors turned out to be, because it was just Cybermen 2.0. And again, you can argue that the Z Warriors were fighting them as well, and they put up a fight, but it was mainly Gohan who killed them anyway. Like the Z Warriors alone were holding their own, but they couldn't finish the job.
No. They would have buckled at the end.
Yeah, like the Cell Juniors were just stronger Cybermen. So, you know, they were complete rip-offs. They were just in Cell's image. They all looked exactly the same. They were all coloured exactly the same way. They were all the same size as Cybermen. They were complete copies, and it's hard to deny that. But yeah, the only difference was that they kind of, you know, they had a purpose as they were like Cell's children, I guess. Whereas Cybermen, you can literally just plant them. And I guess you could literally have an army of Cybermen. Like if Vegeta and Nappa brought more Cybermen with them, you can argue that the Z Warriors would have had a harder time, but Nappa and Vegeta brought just too many. I mean, not enough. They brought not enough.
Yeah, because they're. I think I was reading about it as well with them, where they have such limited intelligence that basically they only know to do what they're told. Otherwise, they're basically, and that's why the Freezer Force uses them, because they'll never revolt.
Yeah,
which makes sense. They're basically just foot soldiers, even though for the most part it's Saiyans who seem to take over planets. But anyway, that's a moot point. But yeah, I think that's why it's important to me, because it was the impact they had. They allowed the Z Warriors to have their moment. The fact that they managed to negate to show that Raditz was actually, as much as you struggled with him, he's nothing compared to Vegeta and Nappa, because these guys are the same thing. And you saw how they reacted to that when Vegeta just kind of went, That's about it, really. They blew away, and I think they're also very memorable models, like drawings, animations as well.
Mhm.
I think they look interesting, and I'd say out of the minions, they're definitely the most memorable
Yeah.
as a group of minions, I would say, rather than the sidekicks. Obviously, the sidekicks have more to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why they've got a place for me. I've got a bit more traditional, and definitely in the group minion side, but to me, they hold a special place.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I definitely do feel like I've kind of cheated this one by picking Nappa. And I think it might tip the votes a bit too much, but we'll see anyway. Um,
If I can hit a third, I'll be happy. Third of the vote, I'll be happy.
yeah, I think I picked a too strong part. I should have stuck with the traditional minion rather than sidekick. But anyway,
If you had to pick a side one, because I imagine you had a backup, did you? Or were you
um,
probably convinced with Nappa?
I was pretty stuck down with Nappa, and I've been thinking about it. But again, the people who are coming to mind as solid, memorable sidekick. Well, again, I'm thinking sidekicks. So I'm not thinking minions. Like I was thinking, Zarbon and Dodoria were pretty memorable, especially Zarbon specifically because he could transform. But again, I wouldn't class them as minions per se. Um, I'm trying to think.
Well, I could say they were definitely, like, I wouldn't say they were Frieza's sidekicks. I think you could have definitely said, I think they're just members of the Frieza Force, but higher up.
Yeah, because they
Um,
had their own unique design, like you mentioned,
yeah,
Abu and Raspberry. They kind of all looked similar and blended into each other, whereas Dodoria and Zarbon kind of stood out. Um, but I'm trying to think throughout the other sagas. You know, you don't really get too many, but I do have a minion in mind. If we go full minion, who
yeah,
is Tambourine from the original Dragon Ball saga. He kills Krillin.
yeah.
And he completely
I thought you'd go there. I thought that's who you were going to pick.
yeah,
The uh, King Piccolo's minions. I thought you would have went in that direction.
yeah. You know
Um,
what? I will. Let's change it, okay? We've talked about Nappa, but he is not my pick. Tambourine is my pick. I will go Minion to make it fair. Tambourine is my pick. So I guess I'll explain a bit more now. Um, he kills Krillin, like is mentioned. Krillin is the first major death in all of Dragon Ball. He is the very first one. He's the first one because the Dragon Balls haven't brought anyone back to life at this point. You think death is permanent. It's a major moment. You think a main character is gone from the show forever. And obviously that doesn't turn out to be the case. But at the time, it was huge. And this is by a minion, Tambourine. And the first time Goku and Tambourine fight, Tambourine destroys him. Goku was, of course, worn out from the World Tournament that he was just in, and he rushes off in rage because he's just found Krillin's dead body. So he is tired, but he does jump in unprepared, and he pays for it with Tambourine literally leaving him for dead. He thinks Goku's dead. Goku does nothing to Tambourine at all the first time they meet. And Goku is lying down face first in the dirt. Tambourine thinks he's dead, and he just flies away with a smile on his face. And it's like, okay, is this the main bad guy? And obviously, no, Demon King Piccolo is the main bad guy. Tambourine is literally no one in the grand scheme of things. But he single-handedly kills Krillin. He destroys Goku. And then when Goku is a bit more prepared and comes back a second time, he does die. But overall, Tambourine was huge. Incredible minion. And strong for the time as well, I guess, by defeating a main character. Arguably, the Cybermen did put up a fight against the Z Warriors, but they didn't battle a main character, like they didn't battle a Goku.
the protagonist.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
protagonist. Whereas Tambourine does defeat Goku, and he does take out the second biggest character on the show, Krillin. He kills him. So it's like, okay, and this is a minion. All right. So yeah, my backup pick is now my new number one pick. We will go with Tambourine. He is my pick for best minion. But of course, you would have had a backup as well. So who was your backup?
I would. I definitely don't think it's as strong, but it's Babidi's minions
Okay.
within the ship. So not Majin Vegeta or not Majin Buu. It's the ones prior to the Majin Buu being released.
Right.
So Spopovich, people like that.
Yeah. The ones in
Cos-
the tournament. Yeah.
yeah, and then the is it Pui Pui, I believe, who they fight within the ship on the different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dabura as well, because, and I think you think Dabura is not massively interesting, but it's the fact that they have these different fighting kits which you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Dabura's spit, which turns people to stone, and basically before it's even begun, you've got Krillin and Piccolo who are taken out just like that before the saga's even truly begun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing's really happened, and you've lost two very important characters, just like snap of a finger.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets up the Vegeta arc as well, because Vegeta, and it leads to that very interesting dialogue between Vegeta and Gohan, which is not something you see very often. Vegeta basically talking to Gohan saying, your pacifism every time gets people killed, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you've let yourself get weak, and because of your hesitancy, because your way of not wanting to fight has got two people killed again. And it was very interesting, and I thought that's quite that for it's what I tend to find with Minions. What interests me is what it leads to, how they involve with the characters, not just do they look cool or something like that, and whether or not they have interesting fighting styles, which they do. And I did like that about Dabura. I don't like him particularly as a character, but the fact that you have that, and then you even got a mini backstory with Spopovich, two brothers. They're very weak. When they first entered the tournament previously, and then they come back and they're totally roided up, and it leads to obviously Videl getting beaten and almost killed.
Yeah, like that is one of the most gruesome fights in Dragon Ball. Seeing Videl get completely destroyed by Spopovich is insane.
It's quite uncomfortable. To get like it's a bit whoa, but then it also leads to one of my favorite moments, which is Gohan Saiyaman popping off and going proper Super Saiyan, and it's just it's interesting to see that they've been taken over and they've entered this Majin state. So I do find them interesting as characters, as minions, but I didn't think they were the strongest, so it's not why I went with them, but I do find them quite interesting. Yeah, that was my backup.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess just to reiterate, since again I'm not going with Nappa, I described him completely for no reason. To make it a bit more fair, I am sticking with Tambourine. He is my pick for the best minion. Your pick is the Cyberman. Well, the Cybermen, all of them, I guess, as a collective. So yeah, if you want to vote, then go along to our socials down below. You can see them on screen right there. Dragon Radar Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. Go vote on the polls, and next episode we will find out which one of those enters the Hall of Fame.